Dear ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the 2022 International Open Seminar on Semiotics, a tribute to John Deely on the 5th anniversary of his passing. My name is Yulia Nikitenko. This seminar is a collaborative international open scientific initiative and a celebration that connects a network of dozens of organizations and scholars around the world. The sessions will run throughout all the year, so please follow the schedule on our webpage to stay tuned. We are joining here today to explore the semiotic dimension of the city landscape. And our guide through this topic will be Dr. Olga Lavrenova. Thank you very much, Dr. Lavrenova, for being today with us. Before you start, I would like to say a few words to introduce you to our audience. Dr. Lavrenova is the leading researcher of the Institute for Scientific Information on Social Sciences of the Russian Academy of Science, president of the International Association for Semiotics of Space and Time, professor at the National University of Science and Technology, and at the GITR Film and Television School, the deputy director for science at the Nicholas Roerich Museum of the International Center of the Roerichs, and honorary member of the Russian Academy of Arts. She is a Fulbright grantee at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and University of Texas, Austin, and author of over 180 publications, including the monograph Spaces and Meanings, Semantics of the Cultural Landscape, issued by Springer in 2019. There are also two long-term projects of which Dr. Lavrenova is the author. First one is the Geography of Art, running since 1992 and exploring the territorial problems of culture and art. And the second one is entitled Russia and the East, the Interaction in Art, and was launched in 2018. So please, Dr. Lavrenova, the floor is yours.
Dear friends, many thanks for everybody and many thanks for organizer. This opportunity to be together in that tragic time of the separated world. And I hope that we can be together in scientific work in future. Maybe our contacts will be stronger and stronger despite the political situation. I'm try to make the presentation. Yeah. One of my main topic of my main interest, it is the semiotics of cultural landscapes. And within this framework of cultural landscape, I also study the semiotics of the gloomy spaces, the gloomy located, the marginal located locus, the marginal localities, and so on. What about the terms marginality? It is a very broad term in the contemporary human science, but mainly the marginal is the, it means that somebody, some peoples or some objects who are on the borderline, who are out of space, out of living space of the society. But another point of view of the marginality is the concept of social marginality. Within the framework of the concept of the social marginality, This is considered mainly in sociological terms and as a consciousness of and consequence of poverty. Unemployment, social crisis, and alcoholism, drug addiction, and so on. And when I try to study the topic of the problem of social marginality in the landscape, I try also to investigate it in the framework of the visual culture, contemporary visual culture, not only the landscape, but also in the visual culture. So this problem, this topic, my presentation, it is it's a kind of matryoshka. It is a box inside box, frame in the frame. First, it is the problem of the marginality in a frame of the cultural landscape. And second, it is in the visualization frame, in the frame of visualization in the internet, blogs, YouTube channels, in movie, and so on. And third, it is already everyday practices generated by visual culture, such as the slum tourism and interactive performances involving the homelessness. Oh, yes, so, I'm sorry about my poor English. The history of studying of the marginal places, it is rather long, and we can remember the Chicago School of Urban Investigations, Chicago School of which is deal with the perception of urban marginality and spatiality as closely related and mutually constitutive. And we also have the modern approaches, which involves the study not so much of social phenomena as of numerous structural process that lead to the emergence of marginal spaces in the city. In the nowadays, we also have rather many works of non-European scholars, but also Asian, African scholars, which are try also to study, to investigate the problem of marginality. It is very close also to the problems of so-called spatial stigmatization, the problem where places, the problem of places with a high concentration of poverty. And so we can study this problem in this frameworks of social urbanism and framework of critical studies of contemporary visual culture also. As we understanding the marginality as a part of the cultural landscape structure, we have to try to define the cultural landscape as a cultural landscape. The cultural landscape, it is the unity of the natural soil natural landscape and human activity, not only handmade artifacts and so on, but it also includes the energy and information. So also we can speak about the images of the places, the images of the localities, and if we can speak about this in the semantics approach, we also can understand that it is the problem of science, because every place, every landscape structure have its own meaning, which is connected with its history, with its contemporary problems, with everything, and maybe with the previous persons who lived here, and so on. And everybody who live in such structure can understand everything which which is proceeding in this cultural landscape. Inside the cultural landscape, this landscape which is transformed by culture into in a science system also, there are some places which in the classical American humanistic geographer Yu Tuan also defined like topophobic places, the places of fear. They evoke fear and negative feelings and have the corresponding semantics of the semi side of comfortable everyday life. While in prehistoric times, the topophobia places were connected with the wild nature, forests, mountains, and so on, in contemporary life, the topophobic places mainly connected with the some places inside the cities. It is the slums, it is the regions which are connected with the mafia or so on. We have in every city some places of fear, and but inside these places, life is life. If you live in the slum, you didn't understand that slum, it is the places of fear. Mainly, if you are understanding the slum, the places of fear, so you're the citizen of the rich part of the city. It is interesting process when it is the binary opposition, rich and power places, the topophobic places of the center of the city, the rich regions of the city, and the slums and so on places. If you're inside the first one and not in the slum, it is an interesting process that from the 19th century, the slum tourism began. It was because of the some literature masterpieces like Dickens, like Dostoevsky, like Maxim Gorky. They wrote about the poor people in the slums, and some aristocrats began to want to go to the slums and to see such process in their own eyes. It is like of gazing of this process. The contemporary visual culture, which is connected with the problems of the slums, had its roots in the literature of the 19th century. And this tradition of the slum tourism, which was originated also in the 19th century. We had also rather interesting differences between the Western world and the Russia in this slum tourism during the 19th century. In United States, in the Great Britain, mainly the people came to the slum only for the gazing. But in Russia, due to the social democratic party, due to the Communist Party, some people from the rich regions came to the slums and tried to speak with the people, to involve them in the political process. Maybe I don't know such process in the Great Britain and the United States and in Europe. Maybe this also existed. Nowadays, the slum, the poverty, the marginality, it is also the spectacle for the ordinary people, for the rich people, which are live in the center of the city, in the rich regions, and so on. Slums, it is a attractor of the tourists, and it is also connected with the visual nowadays movies. Mainly well known, it is a movie, the Slumdog Millionaire, and the actors which are play in these films were the Slumdog's children, and it was an interesting also situation when the directors of this movie pay money directly to the bank, to the name of these children. But their parents didn't have money from this film, and as I read in the internet, about 1 year after this film, in 209 or so on, some journalists came to the parents of this girl and try to propose to her father buy this girl for another country. And father said, "Oh, okay, you can buy this girl because I hadn't money from this film, and it's absolutely non-profitable for me." So I don't know the final of this history, but mainly this movie, Slumdog Millionaire, was the first point of the slum tourism during the 21st century. And the slum tourism began a very important part of the tourism, and it is the insight of the rich people who saw it is the transcendental experience inside soil inside in of the rich people who came to the Dharavi in Mumbai and saw these very poor people. And it is interesting that it is connected with the semiotics, the meanings of this place, that they try to find in the slum the answer for the soil problems. And they came in and connect with people. They thinking about that these people more true than ordinary people in the West, and they came back in their countries, in Europe, in the United States, with the new experience, with the new soil and so on. And other people came to the slums with the practical aims, like to buy girls and so on. And mainly tourists came to the slums for the special parts of the slums. So they cannot go to the slum without any guide, because it is very dangerous. They came to the some part which is under the protection of the some kind of mafia, and they pay money for these people, and so nobody takes their money, nobody robs them and steal their property. You saw that slums mainly the separate part of the city, which is very near to the city. Some people lived in and live in this part of the city, and it is very connected with the center of the city, because very many people from the slum who lived and live in the slum go to the work in the center of the city. It is the Mumbai, it is the Kenya, Coimbra in Kenya. So you saw the interesting also visual project of the photographer John Miller, who used the drone to make the photos of the slum from the drones, and he made the photos on the border where the slums connected with the ordinary urban regions, and you can see the differences of the settlement in these pictures which are made from the drones, like also this one in South Africa, and in Dharavi, Mumbai. also you can see this some kind of slums in Buenos Aires and many big cities, but mainly it is the big cities of the global south. It is not the big cities of the Europe or of the United States. In Russia, we also have not such kind of the slums. Mainly it is connected with the, not only with the politics, but also it is connected with the climate. Because if you live in the global south, you can make your house from everything. But if you live in Russia, you cannot make your house from everything, because in the winter you will be frozen. And also in Mexico, you can see such kind of slums. And what about the another movies which are very interesting, and also it is the connected with the modern Western culture. Very interesting Eastern new film by Nadine Lagbaki, Capernaum. And this film shows the Beirut, and this film didn't provide the new wave of slum tourism, because the Beirut more dangerous than Harabi, which is connected with the Mumbai authorities, which is connected with the Mumbai mafia, and it is more structured. Beirut, it is a city, wild city for the Western culture, and it is very dangerous to try to go to these slums and see something interesting. Another type of marginality in the space of the city, in the urban space, I called it invasions. Slums, it is region, separate regions near the city or somewhere, but invasion, it is the places where which are used by the marginal people, and these places are situated inside the center of the city mainly, and it is different also, it is a different meanings, because the slum, it is a place of the global poverty, of the South poverty and so on. And invasions, it is a places where lived people who sometimes ago were in the normal people, who sometimes ago had their own flat or their own house, so on, and mainly these people had their own tragedy, maybe the stress, maybe depression, maybe the alcoholism, and so on. And the main literature masterpiece in Russia, it is Maxim Gorky play, The Lower Depths. And you know that Akira Kurosawa, the Japan productor, made the Japan director of the film made the his own film about this play, and he tried to reconstruct it, the psychology of the persons. So the invasion mainly connected with the personal tragedy of the people, not the problem, or mainly the problem of the global problem of the poverty. So mainly the invasions connected with the movies, and it is also the movies which are investigate not the problem also of poverty, but the problem of the psychology. And you know, the very brilliant film of Akira Kurosawa, The Descadent, or Under the Sound of the Train Wheels. And it is interesting also that all Kurosawa films, like the Lower Depths and the Descadent, were made not in the real space. They made in the cinema pavilions, and he made the artificial slum places and tried to make a story inside these artificial places, not like the Slumdog Millionaire, like he was connected with the Dharavi. In Russia, it is very interesting and very popular film of the perestroika time, directed by Eldar Rязанов, very famous Russian producer. It is The Promised Heaven, and he also used the very brilliant pleiad of the actors, which played also the tragedy, the psychological problems, and he also showed to the watchers the very similar place, which is very similar to real places in Russia, where the homeless people can live. It is the wage, the railway wage. It is very near to the real situation, because in Russia it is very comfortable place to live during the winter if you're homeless people, the old wages. And the very famous great British film by Alan Bennett, The Lady in the Van. It is also the film about the marginal invasion in the respectable place of the city. This lady with the van came to the very rich, very rich region of the city, and she lived near the house of one writer, and it is also the film about the personal tragedy of this woman. Nowadays, we also have a new trend in the visual culture. It is documentary videos, streams, blogospheres, and in Russia, I don't investigate other such kind of blogs, some kind of YouTube channels in other countries. But in Russia, there are some YouTube channels which are connected, especially of the homeless people, and the blogger made the streams. He made the film. He made videos of all these persons. They're real person. They really live in the near the railway station, because in Russia it is very popular place of the living of the homeless people near railway station. It is more comfortable for them. And sometimes people who watch this YouTube channel wrote to the author, can you help for these people? I can give money, but help him to make some documents, to take them to the hospital, or so on. Sometimes he really, the author, this blogger, takes money and give them to these people. Sometimes he helped them to go to the hospital or so on, but mainly all of these people came back. Because they live on this like homeless people, mainly with the alcohol problems. Another YouTube channel, The Homeless Day. It is another town, not Moscow, as I remember it is Kazan. And it is also connected with the stories of the homeless people and real stories, storytelling. And if usually I connected with the websites of the Russian travelers, and you can see that some travelers usually when they made story about another city, another country, usually they made 1 or 2 pages about the problem of the poverty, the problem of the homeless, and so on. Like this one, it is the blog about the Argentina and Latin America, and it is also if you saw the Buenos Aires, you also can see the invasion. Many people lived, homeless people lived and live in the center of the Buenos Aires, and it is very profitable for them, because every evening the charity organizations go to the streets of the Buenos Aires and give them the hot meals and so on. So if they live in the slum, nobody help them. But if they live inside the center of the city, the charity organizations help them, and so on. It is from the point of view of the semantics, it is interesting, because such kind of the local places are not dangerous. These are not topophobic, but ordinary people who came, who walking around these places where homeless people live, they don't mind about them. So it is like an empty place. Nobody put their gaze on these people, nobody sees them. It is invisible places where such kind of the homeless people live in such in the Buenos Aires. Also the another blog like travel and recreation, and it is also connected with the Brazilian slums. And for the final of my speech, I try to also made an interesting conclusion about the differences between the problem of between the spatial self-organizing of homelessness in different countries. You saw that it is the photo where you saw on the wall that Russia is for the sad. And it is some kind of type of Russian mentality that Russia is for the sad. And if we speak about Russian homeless people, mainly they have their localities inside the center of the city, because it is easy to earn money, to steal something and so on. In the winter, they mainly lived in some kind of undergrounds near the hot water. I don't know what is the name, the hot water communications, because it is warm. They can live in the cold weather. And mainly the Russian homeless people, they have the problems with the alcohol, with the drug addiction. So it is the kind of Russian mentality in the semi side of the Russian mentality, that there are no order in the organizing of this place. But if you see the homeless people in Japan, you see that mainly these people made the very aesthetic places for their living. Sometimes they also can paint some flowers, and there are no garbage, there are no trash in near these places. And the people who lived in such kind of places mainly worked in the center of the city. They are not alcoholic, they are not drug addicted, but they are homeless because of the economical troubles. And if you saw India, for example, you saw that the homeless people disappeared through all space of the city. And it is the problem of the poverty in the global poverty. And they're not also connected with the personal tragedy, with the alcohol problems mainly. And sometimes, as you know, the very famous photo, sometimes they live on the street, and the children which live in the street can go to the school, can try to take education, and so on. So it is only these places have not the spatial meaning in the place of the city, because it is only the problem of money. It is not the problem of some such kind of spatial problem and so on. It is interesting for me when I was in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar, I did not see any homeless people because people who are not rich, they also have their own home. It is a traditional culture. They have their nomads traditions. They have their own nomads settlements and so on. And during the winter, they come to the Ulaanbaatar and put the moving yurtas inside the center of the city, in the garden, and so on. And so I didn't see any homeless people who are really homeless. Maybe one or two. For example, I saw only one real specific homeless who lived near the central restaurant in the Ulaanbaatar. He knew many languages and he asked money from the tourists, but he drank alcohol. It is only one person which I saw in the Ulaanbaatar. In the United States, mainly the homeless people are moving. So they have their moving mechanism to take their own things, to take their own clothes and so on. And you saw the also there is a very interesting book about Under the Neon, about the Las Vegas underground people who lived in the storm severe in the storm undergrounds, and they made in these underground places their own living places, which are very similar to the normal places. They have the beds, they have the TV set, they have the mirror, and so on. But during the storm, everything can be moved away. And another also visual project is of Mary Lou, who made the photos of the American homeless people. And it is also the story about the invasions, because you know that in the United States also the homeless people tried to live near the center of the city. And mainly they lived in the tents. It is also the American specific. In Russia, homeless have not money to buy the tent. Maybe it is also the Europe feature. Also, the homeless people in Europe lived in the tents, and I saw in Los Angeles the tents of the homeless people near the city administration. They lived near the city administration and tried to make impulse for the administrations. And also the charity programs for the homeless in the United States. You saw such kind of the mobiles home, which was made for some of the homeless people. And another features of the American homeless spaces that sometimes the homeless people try to unite in the spatial spaces, like slums with their tents and so on. And when the American police, I saw the articles about that, that when the American police see such kind of the self-organization, they try to push everybody from this space and to clean the space, because the self-organization of the poverty, the self-organization of the marginal people, it is rather dangerous for the respectable citizen. So many thanks for your attention. It is my mail. And here you can see the article which is devoted to this problem. You can see it is in English. You can find this in this link, tvscience.online/in/. You saw the archive and volume 17.2. You can see this is the direct link to my article. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lavrenova, for this presentation. It's very interesting and important topic.
I'm sorry for my poor English, but I hope you're understanding.
No. It was very good, and now I would like to introduce our commentator, Dr. Tiit Remm. Thank you very much for being today with us. Dr. Remm is a researcher of semiotics and director of curricula in semiotics in the University of Tartu. His research is focused on semiotics, social semiotics and semiotics of space, particularly on urban semiotics and the use of spatial environment and special concepts for social management, as well as semantic aspects of spatial modeling in humanities and social sciences in general. He defended his dissertation in 2015 on the topic socio-cultural space, spatial modeling, and the socio-cultural world. Please, Dr. Remm, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Yulia, for this introduction, and thank you, Olga, for the very interesting talk. So I just don't have much of comments, but just some and some questions maybe. So let's see, maybe the discussion will also continue by itself. So you talked very well, it talked about the marginal spaces and with rather good visual examples, and it's indeed one of the central problems of urban semiotics, the internal structure of the city and how it is actually lived out, and who is the subject that is living it, not just the representations of the city in culture, but also that it's about real people in the real life and how they also make sense of it. And as you pointed out, well, talking about marginal spaces and about slums, there is a difference of from whose perspective we see it, either from the rich or the people from the slum. So you can actually say that the marginality is related to the perspective of the rich people, the outsiders of the slum, or the probably the, well, you could say that the dominant part of the culture, or at least it is the official part, whether it's what is the role of rich people or slum people in the local culture? That's maybe another thing. But yeah, and in this sense, you can say that it's marginal only from one point of view. But also, I started to think about the homelessness, as you pointed out that in Mongolia, it seems that no one is homeless because they have their tradition of nomadic lifestyle, and so the living in a tent, so to say, or yurta is actually, it is living in home. But when looking at your presentation, you can say that the examples were mostly about actually homes, not homelessness, just different kinds of homes. And in this sense, we can maybe say it's also different. There are different types of marginality, depending on whether we talk about the home in the slum as a marginal type of a home, or this urban marginality in terms of industrial areas, maybe, that are also in a way marginal. So yes, this issue of homelessness, and that maybe it is also very much a perspective related concept, as anyone may, well, I cannot claim for sure, but there is a tendency to make yourself at home. And then we could ask about the perspectives and how much do they actually get actual in these kinds of talks, and whether the perspective of the people, of those, so to say, marginal people, whether they actually get into dialogue with the ones who call them marginal. Or it's just one so strong discourse about the marginality, the slum.
It is interesting types. There are many types of the dialogues. First of all, it is the relations, working relations, because mainly, if you mean the slum, mainly people who live in slums, they work inside the city. Another type, I saw the interesting article about, I don't remember right now the name of the city in the Latin America, when the authorities of the city try to make the slums, the favelas, the cultural heritage of the city, because many tourists came to these favelas and so on, and they try to make the slums like to give them the new meaning, like a cultural heritage. But this project was not go to the final stage, but it was. Another type of the dialogue, it is the volunteers who came to the slums and try to help the charity organization who also came to the slums and try to help. And another which is connected to the visual culture in United States was some projects of the reality show where the famous people came to the slum, lived in the house of the family of somebody, and about 1 or 2 weeks, and the cameras made the films about this interaction between this famous person and the people who lived in these slums. And the final stage of this reality show was when this famous person helped to this concrete family, to the concrete person with whom he lived. He helped to go to the school, to the university, or maybe to buy something for the new life. And so this famous person tried to help the people go out from the slums. So it is one of the type of the dialogues. Another type of the dialogues, it is the force, when the authorities of the town try to push out the marginal people who lived in the slum, or in the city. And you know, when in the Los Angeles in the United States, the authorities try to push out all beggars, all underground people, all marginal people from the center of the city. The rich citizens of this city made the protest, and they say this homeless people also have the right to live in the center of our city. So that's it is another way.
It is actually quite interesting that this kind of dialogue might not only be the kind of helping intention, but also when you push someone out, it can also be seen as a dialogue or communicative.
If you mean the social, the very social programs of the authorities to help the slum, I saw that some of them existed, but not many. The authorities of cities understand that they have not enough money, they have not enough enough people to help to the problem of the slums.
And when you had two examples or two types of examples, the people in the slums or the urban marginality in the outskirts of the town, or at least in a separate area, and then also examples of the homeless people, and in this sense the urban marginality in the very center of the city on the main street.
Yeah.
So do you see that also, as it is the kind of urban marginality, is there different models of this marginality for the urban culture, or how would you
compare? Yeah, it is rather different. I said that the slums, it is mostly the feature of the global south. It is the reality of global south, but mainly in the Europe and the United States, in Canada, in Russia, and so on. The main features of the homelessness, it is the invasion inside the cities.
And it has cultural reasons also, besides the climatic
I think the climatics, the cultural, and also the economical, because we have not in Russia so many peoples who have not home. It is mainly the 90% of Russian people have their own homes, or they rent the home. The economical level of Russia, it's a little bit more higher than the economical level of India, I think so, and so for other countries also. And it is also interesting problem for the mainly for the United States in last 2 years during pandemic and during and after the first wave of pandemic, when the ordinary people who lived in the houses in leasing, in the rent houses, they lost their works, they lost their job, and so they had not money, and they cannot pay for the owner of these houses, and it is the private properties, and so they were pushed from these houses. And nowadays there are some programs in United States which is devoted to the problems of such kind of people who lost the job, and they try to help them, but the main way of helping it is try to speaking with the owners of these houses, of these apartments, and try to explain them that it is very bad to push the ordinary people from their own apartments. So
okay, and there's maybe final more general question I had. I talked a lot about the visual culture of the marginality and about the examples of movies about marginal people and the marginalizing problems and so on. So the movies, and on the other hand, the YouTube channels or other blogs.
Yeah.
In a way, they seem to be quite much the same kind of phenomena of this slum tourism, to show the others, so to say.
It is show, yeah.
But is there also some important difference that you can point out between those, like visual genres in visual culture, or the approaches in visual culture?
Yeah. Yeah, it is also the show, and some people who look through these YouTube channels, they are like tourists who are sitting on their own chair, and mentally they are inside this phenomena. And they also try to pay to donate to these people, to the author of the channel. But in Russia we also had 2 examples, maybe more, but I know the 2, when the homeless people made their own channels, and they earn money from the YouTube watchers, and they use this money to go to the Egypt or Turkey. They earn this money for vodka. They made the YouTube streams and so on. But one of the author was he died because of the illness. Another right now very successful successful homeless people, homeless men.
So it's actually even very interesting that whether you can see a different kind of approach, a different perspective from those YouTube channels, whether this whether they take over this perspective from the, so to say, mainstream channels, or they create some of their own.
It is not mainstream. It is only the one of the niches where the visual culture exists. No, it is not mainstream. It is, but it is rather popular.
Okay, and then it actually seems that those some of the YouTube channels actually recreate even more clearly this slum tourism than movies, as movies just give a spectacle of some kind of narrative, but the YouTube channel actually gives also the kind of very close experience of slum, even though it's safely mediated by someone who is making the video, and then also you can be the person who's donating some kind of touristic charities involved there.
Yeah, it is also interesting features of Russian tourists' blogs. It is different from the Western, because in Russian tourists, they are crazy. Usually they came inside the slum without any bodyguard there, and usually they had the problems. They made the video about these problems, about the incidents with the these people, and usually they go out with some problems, but it is an action. It is very popular also among the Russian watchers of these YouTube channels.
Okay, thank you. Maybe someone else wants also to add some comments or questions.
Thank you, Dr. Remm, for your comments, and it was very interesting dialogue. I will invite other our guests to join in after a short announcement to our audience in YouTube. I would like to say that we now will close on the broadcast, and if you are interested, you can find the information about our following sessions on our webpage. The link will be below this video.